watching the monkey.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of The Art of Being with the Act Matrix. I'm one of your hosts, Kevin Polk, and with me is
Phil Denalia over here.
This one, he's Phil. We were just talking about Phil from Philly. That's,
yep.
And he's here. And we'll start off first. We do a word from our sponsor. Phil does a word from our sponsor.
Yes. So before we have John here talk to us about his art of being, we do a quick little here's our sponsor. Our sponsor is the Act Matrix certification.
Yeah, us. Yeah, the certification that we do.
And that is how we pay our bills and get this podcast out to you and get people on. And really what we're talking about here, it's a community of like-minded folks such as us that are interested in doing good work and generous work and learning how to present and train with the Act Matrix so that you can become certified yourself. So we do offer an online training. The next training is going to be beginning of January, right, Kevin?
January 8th.
Yeah. And you can sign up anytime you want through the website, to the Act Matrix Academy website. And then as you go through the training, when you think you're ready, you will sign up with us and pay for your certification and go through it, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, he's referring that the training in doing this is always free. I mean, even these podcasts are part of the training. It's just the certification process. So we want everybody out there using it.
Right.
And certification isn't for everyone,
right,
but some people like it. As a matter of fact, John is in that. I just recall when he mentioned that to me this morning. And this morning we're broadcasting this, or we're recording this, I should say, on December the 16th, 2019, about to close out the decade.
Yep, that's right. Coming down the home stretch here.
Yeah. So, but we got several more podcasts scheduled between now and the end of the year. So,
yeah.
So without further, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, fellas, with just speaking about the certification training, as you talked about, Kevin, I just finished it, finished the kind of lecture series of it, and learned a ton. And this is from someone who, I read the Act Matrix book when you first published it five years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been working with the Matrix for a while, but even so, I picked up a lot from this certification process. A couple of things that stand out to me. One is I love how simple both of you try to keep the language, the concepts. So there's this real strive for simplicity in a profession where we can, I think, make things overly complex. Mm-hmm. And I just love that both of you keep pushing this. Let's keep it simple. Mm-hmm. Let's not be jargony. Let's make this something that people can really kind of relate to pretty quickly.
Yep. And to the point where I at least, well, Phil does too, we try and catch ourselves when we accidentally use jargon words.
Yep.
Then back it up in plain language, those words.
Yeah.
I was, and this will move toward what John's going to be talking about today. But I finally went to see the most recent Mr. Rogers thing, and Phil and I are real Mr. Rogers fans, and understand, folks, that I was way too old and way too cool for Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, me too. Rogers. Yeah, I couldn't tolerate Mr.
Right.
Rogers.
There's no way.
I'm the first one to admit it. I'll admit
right.
it.
Oh yeah, me too. I am not saying I was a Mr. Rogers kid or anything. However, in having read about him quite a bit in the documentary, and actually a lot of reading too, the man was profound.
Yeah.
And part of his being profound is now he's having this influence on all these adults like me and Phil and other people that didn't watch him.
No,
we didn't watch his show, but he continues on. And somebody like Tom Hanks, you could tell, wanted to do the character to help get the word
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
to help.
It's almost as if he knew we were going to get older, and then at some point we were going to go, "Oh, okay, now we know what he's talking about."
Yeah,
He was onto
exactly.
something, right?
Right. Yeah. It's
Right.
almost, you feel that way. It's
Like, wow, he was up to something, this guy.
Right.
I think he really was. And I say all of that because there's this wonderful quote by him. He said, "I feel so strongly that deep and simple is far more essential than shallow and complex."
Yeah.
And that's sort of what we're working off of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't thinking of Mr. Rogers so much back when I did The Matrix in 2009, but it fits well, and just something I wanted to bring in there. And something you said, well, it's always, we keep coming back to the simplicity of it.
Yeah. It certainly comes through in what you're doing.
Right. And if the human nature, including my own and Bill's, is to make things more complicated.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Even as we speak, my mind is trying to complexify this thing.
and to come back almost as a mantra to simplify. So we work it. We're going to be doing a video something to the tune of your Mr. Rogers practice or something.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, it's well portrayed who the actress portraying his wife, and there's the scene that says where the reporter is asking her, "What is it like to be married to a living saint?"
Yeah.
And she said, "I don't think of him as a saint. He's not. And if you think of him as a saint, then what he does is not attainable. What he does is a practice."
Yeah.
And he practices it every day.
Yeah.
And we can attain that practice.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that word practice. I use it over and over and over again in my work.
Gotcha.
Yep. And that's it. So part of this is that practice. And I said it would lead to your work.
Yeah.
And so what do you do, John?
Yeah.
Oh, we forgot, where are you from?
Yes.
Well, that could be a long story in itself. Originally from
let's put it geographically.
Yeah. So as I sit here now, I live in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Beautiful Asheville. Yeah.
Great.
So, so what I do is I work primarily with young adult clients, and so my average age client is about 22, 23. Okay. And they're coming to me from really all over the United States. I have a kind of a pretty extensive referral network that I've created. I spent many years in wilderness therapy.
Oh, really?
Out west.
Yeah.
And I spent the last 20 years in Utah before moving to Asheville.
You're not the only person of that ilk in the Matrix community.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
I had this.
I didn't know that about you, though.
Yes, I don't know if Brooks Witter, is that name?
I know him.
Brooks was on, wasn't Brooks on? He was one of the earlier podcast guests.
Yeah, he was on the podcast.
Yeah.
He and I presented together. Yeah. He's a good
great.
I don't know if he was ever in wilderness therapy specifically, but he was in and around that world. I think he worked more in kind of the aftercare industry versus. Okay. So in other words, a lot of my clients who were coming out of wilderness after 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks would go to a place.
Yeah. But probably there may be some of our guests who don't know what we're talking about.
I'll bet you're right.
We better back up.
Yeah.
And they've been around for a few decades, really. Probably hundreds of years in some form of another, but in more organized fashion, where troubled youth, a Ute, as our cousin Vinny would say, are sent to. And one of the most popular for a while was Outward Bound. And so you send them into the wilderness, whether it be the wilderness or an island, whatever. Um, and they learn from their in part from their connection to the wilderness experience. So there's more than one of them.
Yeah, there are many.
Right.
In the last 20 years, many have popped up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think North Carolina is a hotbed for that kind of stuff too. Am I right, John?
You got it. That's one of the reasons, one of the things that drew me to Asheville from Utah was there are a couple of wilderness therapy programs kind of in and around this area.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some, Outward Bound was one of them up here in Maine.
Yeah.
And it dates back over 3 decades. So.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So anyways, but yes, Utah, the West, wherever there's wilderness.
That's right.
Still.
Right. Yeah, wherever there's wilderness, there's typically room for some wilderness therapy.
Right. So you're coming sort of from that mindset a bit.
I'm coming from that mindset. That's right. That's right. Of the mindset. So my clients arrived to me both when I was in wilderness and now here in Asheville with my, what we would call a front country practice instead of a back country practice, meaning, I have an office and they're living in the world. They're part of civilization.
Yeah. Yeah.
But regardless, they're arriving to me, and some of the things I hear over and over again from my young adult clients are, I'm stuck, I'm spinning my wheels, I'm paralyzed, I'm immobilized, just this deep sense of I am not moving in the world in a way that I want to. And when I'm talking to them, sometimes I'll do this kind of motion with my hands and I'll say, it sounds like your life is shrinking in scope and power. And I'll do this and they'll go, oh yeah, that's what's happening. Yeah. And as the two of you know, what's happening typically is they're stuck in the avoidance cycle or, the relief cycle, I think as Evan Park has called it, that they're making the away moves.
It's the loop, the stuck loops.
The stuck loops. Right. Yeah. And so, as a result, their life is shrinking in scope and power.
Right. Oh, we better explain that. Okay. So something really crappy shows up inside of you, a feeling that is uncomfortable. Here's right. Phil. He's got his prop. And if you're on YouTube, you can see the prop. If not, he's holding up a matrix. And in the lower left part, something like, let's just say pain. Pain's one that really people can relate to.
Yeah.
And of course, it's very, very natural for you to want to get rid of pain.
Yeah.
Icky feeling pain. And so then you do something to get rid of pain.
Yeah.
Whatever the numerous things you do. And whatever you do works a bit. And you go, well, that's cool. The problem is the pain comes back in its old intensity. And so here you go again, you do something else to get rid of the pain. Works a little bit. Lo and behold, it comes back. And it's easy to get stuck in a loop of avoiding pain or avoiding stress, anxiety, whatever it is, it's yucky to you. And anybody who can, in the slightest way, recall being a teenager, adolescent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the pains, the pains in your life.
Right there in the middle.
All right, and your life begins to shrink as you shrink down into this series of away moves.
Yeah.
And as you keep moving away and you keep shrinking that circle and and another thing is time, you're spending more and more time.
That's right.
Devoted to that. So your life is shrinking in terms of time. What time you're devoting to who and what's important to you.
That's right.
So that's the explanation of stuck loops for you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And so these kids show up to you and they're feeling
they're stuck.
They're feeling the stuck. Yeah.
They're feeling they're stuck. And so of course I'll ask them, what kind of life would you like to build? What kind of person would you like to move toward? What's important to you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The simple one that I think the two of you use right off the bat is who's important to you.
Yep.
That's what we do. Yes.
Yeah. And I'll use that one as well. And, as they begin to talk about who or what's important to them, their values become clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I'll go back to the lower left at that point and say, well, what gets in the way?
Yeah.
What gets in the way of you moving toward the person you want to move toward, or the life that you want to build? And then, of course, a lot of the yucky stuff will come up. Sometimes they'll say depression gets in the way. Sometimes they'll say anxiety gets in the way. Thoughts that I'm not good enough, thoughts that I'm broken, thoughts that I'll always be sick. All of this stuff gets in the way. And then from there, kind of like what we were just talking about, I'll ask, what are the things that you do to make that stuff go away? To make that kind of icky, yucky stuff, difficult internal experience go away. And then typically my clients will bring up something like substances, alcohol, drugs.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they'll say sleep.
Another very popular away move.
Yeah, very popular. A lot of distraction in the form of screens, whether it's YouTube, porn, video games,
whatever, right?
Whatever. Typically some kind of screen in the face.
Or even Netflix, YouTube, that kind of stuff, right?
Netflix, that can be used as an avoidance behavior. Yeah, yep. Absolutely. Up in that upper left, there's an acronym that I use that I borrowed from, I think it was Evan Park. And the acronym that he uses is DOTS, what he calls DOTS moves or DOTS behaviors. And DOTS, like I said, is an acronym, and the D stands for distraction.
Okay.
So, we can really use anything to distract, but with my clients, the main distractions, like I said, are some kind of screens.
Yeah.
The O stands for opting out. And that's just kind of stepping away from experience. In other words, maybe staying in bed instead of going to class.
Yep.
The T, now this one can be a little bit tricky. The T with my clients, I'll say sometimes can stand for talking. And sometimes it can stand for thinking. But when it stands for thinking, I draw kind of a little mini loop down below that horizontal axis.
Inside, right.
Because it's happening internally.
Yeah.
Right.
But like daydreaming.
Show that, Phil, for the YouTube guests.
Well, I just put his dots up here for
So put the little T down below. Put the thinking down below.
Right. Yeah. You can go up here.
Because I get asked that question a lot. What do you do when people are doing away moves inside their head? How do you do that? Well, there's loops inside the lower left quadrant. Right?
Yeah, you can make a little loop down in the lower left.
I just put talk down the bottom. Put think down the bottom and talk at the top.
Right, but you can make a little loop down in the bottom.
Oh yeah.
It's a little
yucky stuff, right?
It's a little loop down there. So yucky stuff shows up, and then you think different.
So that's just put off to the side, gentlemen. How's that?
There you go. I see it.
That'll work for you. There you go.
That's great. That's great. And then the
S. Need conversations.
Yes, right. Yes. And then the S, like I said, with my clients, typically stands for substances.
Oh, really?
And I would say maybe 80% of my clients come to me with some kind of substance.
Coming to you, right?
You're talking like coffee, right?
I'm talking a little bit harder stuff.
A little bit harder than coffee, huh?
A little bit harder. I'm talking booze. I'm talking, the full array of illegal and sometimes legal, but illegal.
Well, up here in Maine, it's legal. At least marijuana is legal.
Right. A lot of pot, cocaine, the whole list.
The whole list, exactly. Yeah. Opioids, obviously.
Opioids, yeah. Right. But then the S, like I said, can also stand for sleep.
Yeah.
And it can also stand for sex.
Yeah. Yep. We got all those. Yep.
I love that, in this community, this ACT community, the Matrix community, we love our acronyms. And dots is a good one. So
That's a nice one. Dots is nice.
I like it.
I use that. And I would say, with those dots behaviors, that covers most of my clients' away moves.
Yep.
So for a younger crowd, you can say you're doing your dots.
That's right. Yep. I'll say, what kind of dots moves
There you go.
are
Yeah.
you making? Yeah.
Nice. They would like that, I bet.
Boom.
Yeah. It makes
Simple.
sense. It kind of, it's simple.
Yep.
And then from there, of course, I'll go to the upper right and say, well, what would a toward move be for you? In other words, what move could you make in the world that would be toward the person you want to be? And I say in the world, meaning, it's above the horizontal.
It's above the horizontal line.
Yeah, like what behaviorally, how are you going to move your body in a way that is congruent with who you want to move toward, or who you want to be?
That in the world is very important.
Yes, very important.
All of us can get into the thing of, well, I'm thinking good thoughts.
Well, right, exactly.
I got my good mantra going in there.
Right. And it's like, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do with that?
Out in the world, other people can see you doing it.
Right. Right. So, so that's how I run through the matrix. And often what I'll do is, my clients are with me for 6 weeks, 2 months, sometimes 3 or 4 months.
And this is post
wilderness.
Post wilderness.
Their experience. Now they're trying to reintegrate back.
Oh, I like this. Now we got some new lingo: pre-wilderness, wilderness, and post-wilderness.
You got it.
I've spent some time in the wilderness myself. Now that I'm
right.
We got it, but they've been to a wilderness experience
often,
and
or they've come. Yeah, often they've come from wilderness, or sometimes they've come from a more structured young adult treatment program.
Like a treatment program. Okay, right.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Gotcha.
And so now the task is to get into the world.
You got it.
Yep.
To get, it's like that step from a very kind of what we call tight container, structured environment, whether it's wilderness or a front country.
Yep.
But that step now to step into the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Step into normal, whatever that, that is, normal young adult life. So that's what they come here to work with me on.
I'm going to ask a question. Have you found that some of them find that scary, frightening?
Oh yeah, fear comes up. Fear comes up in the lower left. What a lot of fear. Like what does it mean for me to actually be independent, and the fear that comes up with that. What does it mean for me to let go of an old identity, and the fear that comes up with that? When I say that, I mean, like a lot of my clients have been through treatment and have seen many therapists. And so sometimes they identify as sick.
Yeah. And
so what's it mean for them to let go of that kind of broken, sick identity? I mean, that can be scary, right?
Absolutely.
That's kind of it can be a deep existential question.
Right.
So fear can come up in the lower left. Okay. So what do you do in relationship to that fear? Yeah. Does that answer your question, Kevin? Is that what you were?
Yeah. That's been my experience working with young adults as well. Is they, on the right side, it's a big question mark. Like they really don't know.
Yeah.
They know they want to move toward, but they haven't done it enough. So then the fear is going to show up, and it can really be powerful. Yep.
I remember there was a great line in a movie by Robert Redford called The Horse Whisperer. And it's just a line that stuck with me. And he's talking to a lady he's having an affair with, whatever, the magazine. I don't know. You got to go watch the movie. But the line is when you get up in the morning and you know just what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it always stuck with me because there's so few days that you wake up in the morning and you know just what you need to do.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was, whoever did that little bit of writing was very wise.
Yeah.
Because what, and I'm sure what those your young adults are thinking is that all of us adults get up in the morning and we know just what we
All figured out.
Right, we got it. Yeah, got it all figured out. Yeah. Yeah.
And part of it is their discovery is nah.
Yep.
Those days are few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Then I know just what I need to do.
Yeah.
The rest of it is like, oh crap, here comes another day of muddling along.
Yeah. Yeah. But I agree completely. And I also think we can, at least part of what I try to do with my work is help them get clearer about what they want to do.
There is a clarity. Even with muddling along, if you have a sort of a sort of kind of general notion of where you want to go, the odds of you at least stepping in a sideways step in that direction or something increases.
And the fog begins to
the fog, right. At least you got a chance.
You're right.
Of making a step. So that's it, right. So the muddling is done within the context of, you sort of know where you got a general idea where you want to go.
Yeah.
What you want your life to stand for.
That's right. That's right. So what I'll do with my clients is so some of my clients I see 5 days a week. I mean,
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be really intensive.
Oh, this is intensive.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So every day with my clients, I am using the matrix.
Yes.
And so what I'll do is towards the end of our session, I'll say, let's come up with a matrix for the next 24 hours until I see you again.
Gotcha.
And sometimes, depending on the client, depending on my mood, depending on, I guess the two big things,
He's muddling along again.
Yeah.
Got it. There's my muddling. Yeah.
That's
like,
good.
Where do I want to start today?
It's muddling with intention.
Yeah, you're muddling. Yeah, you're muddling in a value direction. Is kind of
valued life direction muddling. There we go.
So as I muddle along, sometimes I'll start in the upper right and say, in the next 24 hours, what are the toward moves you want to make?
Okay.
In the world? And typically, my clients will say, I want to look for a job, or I want to go to a AA meeting, or I want to go to an NA meeting. I want to work out. I want to, whatever it might be. Yeah. And then with after we've gone over some things in the upper right, after they've identified some things that they want to move toward, I'll typically come back down to the lower right and say, what values might this be connected for to you? In other words, why? Why do the upper right?
Purpose.
I think it's important to connect them to that. Well, because community is important to me,
right?
Or relationships are important to me. Yeah. So sometimes I'll start in the upper right. Sometimes I'll start in the lower right and say, what values do you want to move toward in the next 24 hours? And then they'll come up with some upper right, movements. Okay, if community is important to me, for example, maybe I want to go to an NA meeting today, or maybe I want to make a phone call to so-and-so, or so depending on, that's where it kind of varies, but sometimes I'll start in the upper right or lower right with my clients. Yeah. But regardless, every day they're leaving my office with a matrix. And then what I'll ask them to do is just keep track, maybe before bed or the next morning, keep track of the stuff that's coming up in the lower left, and write it down. Write down, I've had this thought that I'm not good enough, or
noticing stuff, noticing homework, right?
Yeah. The thought
noticing with writing down, right?
What's that, Kevin?
You're having them notice and write down what they know.
That's right. So that noticing, right? We're emphasizing that kind of witness perspective, the observer self.
Observer self. Yep.
Yeah. Can I notice what's happening for me? What comes up that?
But then you go to the next step of you have them write the story.
Yeah. Just kind of keep track of it. Mm-hmm. Keep track of what comes up, and then the other piece with that matrix, as they're working on it, is okay, that stuff came up, and did I engage in a dots behavior? Did I engage in a way move? Or even in the presence of this stuff, was I still able to make a toward move?
Mm-hmm.
And so they come to me the next day and say, I'll say, hey, get out your matrix. Let's talk about how it was for you the last day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a daily part of my work with my clients where
It's a practice.
Yeah.
It's a practice.
Yes.
Yeah, that practice.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I tell clients is I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is with practice, you can get better at this. You can get better at noticing. You can get better at making toward moves, even in the presence of difficult internal experiences.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The bad news is you'll never get perfect. You're still going to get hooked, but that's okay.
Yeah, and it's okay.
And that's exactly as it should be.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll say, that's why they call yoga a practice. That's why they call meditation a practice. That's, this is the same thing. We have to keep going back to it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're stripping away the judgment part of it too.
Yeah.
But you're stripping away the judgment, which is extraordinarily important, folks.
That's right.
Out there, in case you haven't heard us before, that's what we do. We help people notice their lives, and that's okay.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And I know we talk about him a lot, but come back to the Mr. Rogers statement.
Oh yeah.
I like you just the way you are.
Yes.
Which is how he finished off his shows. Well, this is that practice of somebody does a matrix, and there you go.
Yeah.
That's your matrix. That's just the way you are, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And quite cool. Just to go back, since you're having them write it down.
Yeah.
Actually get out, put pen to
track
paper, and write it down.
Yeah.
You really entered into a new realm with them.
By asking them to write it.
Oh, to write it down. They're now writing their story. They're now writing an autobiography.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And whether they know they're writing an autobiography or not, they are.
Right.
The
writing down their
act of
journey.
doing that. The other thing is it puts you in contact with immortality.
Yeah.
Because why does one write? Well, one writes to become immortal.
Yeah.
The words last forever. Who knows who will find those journals a million years from now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So all that kind of stuff is very powerful when you add in that writing component to it, which is what you're doing, which, by the way, is probably very, very good for these folks who are learning how to more workably muddle through life.
Yeah. That's the piece that jumps out to me with the writing is, I think of, the ACT core process of diffusion. And, when we're able to look at
back it up
our internal experience, right? There's a little bit of separation there. And okay, I can look at it rather than from it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think writing helps it with that as well.
Very much so.
Psychological flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a committed action. They're making a committed action in the moment with their yucky stuff.
That's right.
Then you could ask the question as you're writing: as you write, is it in the upper right or is it in the upper left?
Yeah.
You could write away. You could write toward.
Again. Yeah.
That's right.
Which way are you writing?
Yeah.
Now, folks. Now I'm really cranking. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love it.
Commit action toward.
See, Kevin catches himself. as I run into a riff, what I call a riff, and what that was about was really getting somebody backed up and looking at themselves in this observer self kind of way.
Yeah.
And and I just like to turn up the knob on that really quick when I get a chance, because it's valuable. It's a cool thing to do.
Absolutely.
And
one of the things I've noticed the two of you emphasize over and over again is the word notice. Notice. And if
that's the
if
biggie.
we can continue to bolster that observer self noticing perspective, that's huge.
That's it.
That's huge.
Changer right
It
there.
is. It is huge. There's no doubt about it. We're nigh on 11 years into the Matrix now. And because it came about in the spring of 2009. So we're heading into a few months away from the spring of 2020. So we'll be at 11 years. And noticing is the biggie.
Yeah.
And it's sort of how you do all kinds of other stuff. But
Yeah.
But with these young adults, they're almost millennials. Everybody writes about millennials.
Right.
And I'll say to my wife, I don't know who millennials are. And she'll say they're young people. Just they're just young people. Go with it. I'll say, okay, good.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what the official definition of a millennial is either.
Well, I don't either.
I go with young people. That works for me.
That's good. It works for me. But but this muddling along and finding your way is tough.
Yeah. I mean, developmentally, that it's very appropriate for them to be kind of struggling, to be questioning what I want my life to look like, examining who they want to be in the world, and it can be a really difficult time making that transition from adolescence to young adulthood. And I guess I'll put it this way: it's not getting any easier for them socially.
I bet not. No.
Yeah.
Lots of dots out there.
lots of dots. A lot of I mean, I just think of screens in general and phones and, and kind of social messaging and what you should be doing. And so a lot of it is kind of helping them, inviting them to really examine their stories and narratives about who they think they should be and where they should be in their lives, and creating some flexibility around some of that.
Do you ever have them notice where the messages come from?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure. And some of them are just kind of larger social messages.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I really was not, rather than parents and stuff, I wasn't referring to that.
Yeah.
It's like something as big as TV.
Yeah. Right.
Just TV in general.
Yeah.
So what kind of message do you get from TV?
Right.
I know what it is, folks. There's not very many things I'm sure of, but I am sure about that message.
Yep.
At least 99%. You want to hear it?
I'd love to.
You're not good enough.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it boils down to that. Yeah. Some version of that.
Oh yeah.
It is. That's the version of it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you watch that, it's you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense that they would say you're not good enough. Why? Let me go to a commercial break. Phil is going to show you a product that is really going to make you good enough.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed to make.
It's guaranteed to make you good enough.
Yeah.
So if you just part from your money and buy this product, you will be good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Economically driven. Yeah.
And it goes on over and over and over and over and over that you're not good enough. Let's sell you something to be good enough.
We are bombarded by it.
Yeah, it is. So you hear it a lot and you see it. And so but that then, of course, leaks into the social media.
Yeah.
Leaks into all kinds of places that is. I know I just saw the Mr. Rogers movie, so he keeps slipping back in.
Yeah.
But what did Mr. Rogers say at the end of all of his TV shows? Because he was on TV.
That's right.
He just elected to go into the medium that he hated and changed the message. And his message was, I like you just the way you are.
Yes.
The man did thousands of 900 and something TV shows to counteract the message that you're not good enough.
What a message of acceptance, right? I mean, fundamental, easy to understand.
Right.
That's acceptance right there.
Yep.
Straight down the middle of the plate, man.
Yep.
He didn't.
Yeah. You're okay just the way you are. Yeah.
And that was his anti-TV, commercialized TV message.
Yeah.
So
very, very much drove the show and why he started it in the first place.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. And so we go back to that, but Mr. Rogers was great, but he didn't quite, win right in his lifetime at least. And so all of our kids, myself, you, all of us are continually bombarded with you're not good enough. You're not good enough. And we'll literally hear people say those words. Well, I feel like I'm not good enough. Well, it's no big surprise. You've probably gotten that message several hundred times today.
That's right.
Right.
and then the other message that goes right along with that is that if you're not happy, you're broken.
Oh yeah, that's the other. Oh yeah, definitely.
You're missing something.
What's wrong with you if you're not?
There's something that you did not get somewhere along the way, and now
this is that. Phil gave it to me. I have it on a sticky note. We would say, "You mean that you're not in a constant state of ecstatic wonder?" Really?
Really? Yeah, that's right.
What's wrong with you?
Yes.
That's the message.
Yeah, that is the message. That is the message.
And then if you can't be a good example, then like your guys are going to go off and be a horrible warning about what not to do, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. So, a lot of my work is kind of working through a lot of that social programming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's just massive.
Normalizing that they don't always feel happy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's actually healthier than if you did feel happy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's turn back to why go into the wilderness?
Oh, wilderness.
No. Well, I mean, literally, given juxtaposition that right up next to what we were just talking about. So if I go into the wilderness, leave my cell phone behind, leave my TV behind, what is the wilderness going to tell me?
Well, I mean, that I could speak for hours about the power of wilderness, but
I'm sure you could.
Well, under that simple message or the lack thereof.
Oh, yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that's right. In wilderness, just to kind of tie it to what we were talking about, is you can have the experience within days of, wow, I don't have a screen in front of me. Yeah. And I'm okay.
I'm okay.
I'm surviving. And many times, like beyond that, like not only am I okay, but I'm pretty damn happy.
Yeah.
Like I don't need that. And I mean, for our teenagers and young adults to actually have that experience. That's what
I was referring to.
Yeah.
You don't really have to have the onslaught of constantly being told you're not good enough.
Right.
And the human condition to want to be told that all the time is a whole nother podcast, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah.
But to go out and discover that you don't need to.
Yes.
To do that.
Yep.
That's a big part of the wilderness thing.
Yep. Speaking of that, I would say, well, I mean, I can't think of any client that doesn't leave wilderness or their work with me post wilderness and have a much different relationship with social media than they did before. In other words, they're not as tied to it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They're not sensing their sense of self, sourcing their sense of self through Facebook or Instagram, or it's really cool to see someone kind of go through that process of kind of reconfiguring the relationship to social media. It's a cool process to see.
I imagine it is. Not that I haven't done it, but I imagine it's way cool. I've done the wilderness kind of stuff, but that was just sort of on my own back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But Jeremiah Johnson kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah.
That's your wilderness movie, right? He got away from social media.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, among other things, you know, that's
whatever was going on back just post Civil War,
right.
when that was set. But anyways, you get away from the messages of.
Yeah.
What I do. It's really you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And you're broken.
That's right. There's some. Yeah. Those are pretty fundamental messages, right? You're not good enough, and you're broken.
Oh yeah. And it sells things.
It sells things.
You need a fix.
Part of the economic engine, right?
Yeah.
It's the economic engine.
Got to be something you can buy to fix that.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've got it right here.
I got it right here. I'll sell it to you. Yeah.
1995, free shipping.
5 easy payments. 1995. Yeah.
And it's just that quick.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so I don't think we're going to be doing away with any of that stuff anytime soon.
Nope.
That's
I
not
don't
what you
either.
do. What you do is practice.
Practice. Yep.
Is practice.
Yeah.
Practice noticing the messages.
Mm-hmm. Noticing what comes up in you in relationship to the message.
In relation to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, well, then what do you do?
What do I want to do? Yep.
Yep.
What do you do in the presence of that stuff that shows up? Because you're going to get hit with them.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Some of the way that I talk about it, and I think I've heard both of you guys talk about it, is, can whatever comes up in the lower left, some kind of difficult internal experience, messages of you're not good enough, you're broken, can that stuff just come along for the ride?
Right.
Can you make room for it as you're making toward moves in the world? And that's that psychological flexibility piece, is if we can get flexible with that internal experience, it can come along for the ride.
Yes.
Can. So
fun stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting work you do.
Good stuff. Yeah. Well, I have to thank you for the work that you've done. The Matrix has been invaluable. Like I said, I use it just about every day with every client. And it's great. And the other thing too, I mean, there's so many reasons why I really find it valuable, and I think I've heard you, Kevin, describe it this way. It's like this visual metaphor, and it helps me, as someone who has a propensity to get mindy and talky and wordy. It helps like slow down the session, get things like in front of us that we can look at, and get us out of that kind of discursive, overly talky mode of mind that I think is easy for a lot of us to slip into. So.
Only if you're human.
Yeah, only if we're. Yeah, exactly.
If you're not human, you can stay out of it. But
dogs and cats do a good job.
They do a pretty good job.
They do a good job of staying
and
out
staying
of
present, right?
Yeah,
exactly. It's a simple way of diagramming a human being a human.
Yeah.
And you can also write it down. Diagramming is part writing it down. And now you're writing out your story.
That's right. That's right.
See where you want to go with it.
Yeah.
I know sometimes I will talk to young people at times. It's like, so I try to dispel the notion in them that I know exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, kids.
No. I love that. I love that about the Matrix. I love that about ACT in general. Is there's not this kind of top-down hierarchical. It's like I'm in this with you.
I definitely am. I most definitely am.
But having it all figured out is not required for the journey.
No. Yeah.
Well, no, but you want to muddle. You want to get out and do stuff. Muddle around, do stuff. And up here in Maine, they have a wonderful term called dubbing around.
Dubbin.
Dubbin apostrophe, dubbing.
I've
short
never
for
heard that.
dubbing. Yeah, it's a Maine term. And what it means is you go out in your shed or your barn or whatever, and you just dub around and do stuff,
Right. Right.
pick up some stuff,
Fiddle
maybe
around.
fiddle around, think about building something, whatever. And pretty soon something shows up,
Right.
that you ought to do,
Yes. Yes. That reminds me of, with my clients, a lot of them kind of approach life, and I think a lot of us people in general do approach it this way of like, I have to kind of wait around for the right feeling to happen.
Yeah.
Then I'll
Yeah.
move in the world. Then I'll fiddle around. But what I like about what you're saying, Kevin, is like, I'm going to go, fiddle around, and something's going to come up.
Invariably something shows up.
Just don't do stuff. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yep.
Suddenly it's like, yeah, dang, I've been meaning to do that for months.
You got it. You got it. You're doing values-driven activity.
Exactly, right. So but maybe others should have that dub it along, and that's basically life. You just dub around, do stuff, and get up in the morning and just do that. Especially if you don't have anything in particular to do, just dub along at it and see if you can come up with something.
Learn from experience.
It's okay to sit around and watch TV and do stuff at times too. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's other times when you just need to get up and go dub around and do this and do that and see if something shows up worthy of doing. Or maybe it'll result in you figuring out something that's important to you.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
That you just hadn't occurred to you before.
That it hadn't occurred to you. And I think your chances are better of finding something that's important to you by dubbing around.
Yeah. I got it.
Sitting around.
That's it.
That it comes to you.
I'm telling you right now, I haven't met anybody, literally anybody, who found that just sitting around that really that doesn't work.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
You could try it and see if it works. Right?
Yeah, right. It's definitely a case of trying it, but you don't make a life out of it. Try it till you notice distinctly. Those guys are right. This doesn't work.
Try it until you notice that it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Then get up and go do something.
And do something,
or maybe you're a writer. Get your computer or whatever out and start writing a book or something. Whatever. But get up and just do. So anyway, so we got into dubbing, the main term dubbing around. I'm sure now that we put it in podcasts, other states are going to come up and say, no, we have that term too.
We call it this.
Listen, I come from Oklahoma and I moved from Oklahoma to Maine. The word dubbing around was not in Oklahoma. I heard it in my work with people here in Maine.
Maine, yeah.
That's where I got it from.
I think I'm gonna use that one.
Yep, steal that.
Yeah.
But I do, when they had said, I knew just what they were talking about, and it's like, basically you got a shed and a barn and whatever, garage, whatever, and you go out and start dubbing around. And,
Yeah.
You pick it up, you look at it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Something shows up.
Yeah.
Something shows, at least you're doing something, moving around.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. But you got to name this thing.
Yeah.
I do. The name of the
this podcast.
Oh, the podcast?
Yeah, you name it. The podcast guest names the podcast.
Oh.
You name the podcast.
That's our tradition.
So they named the podcast portion of the podcast.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be the art of dubbing around.
Oh.
Okay, we gotta add the young people in there.
Yeah, with young people or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Dubbing around. We can do a colon. The art of dubbing around, colon. Young people finding their way.
Yeah. Young people finding their way, young people moving in the world, something like that.
Okay.
I like it.
I oftentimes help with this stuff. So. Okay. The art of dubbing around, colon. Young people finding their way in the world.
Yes.
There we go.
That works.
That works.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah.
And we really will. Phil and I promised to do some Mr. Rogers.
Oh yeah. Well,
Oh,
now
it's-
that you've seen it, Kevin, I've been waiting for you to see it. So now we gotta
Theme
cook it up.
podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll do some stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. That
Cool.
sounds great.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, now don't go anywhere. Everybody say, except for our guests, just know that we're signing off now, and we'll be back really soon, like tomorrow, with another podcast. So here we go. Bye bye for now.
Yeah.